So it takes a little while there. Oh, and we're live. Yay. Yay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in with me and Jamie. Jamie, do you want to briefly introduce yourself before we start some fun icebreaker questions?
Yeah,
my favorite part. My favorite part.
Hey guys, so good to be here. Really excited to be talking over the next hour or so about all things Frostheart and such. I'm really happy to be here at last. So it's been a long time coming, I think.
It has. It's How to Train Your Gavin special, everyone. I'm so glad that I could have Jamie on here. This has been a really great long time coming. I know so many people wanted an interview with Jamie Littler for the first Believathon when it was the group book. And honestly, the response to Frostheart even then just blew me away. And I was so happy with just the response of it and how everybody was so like, Gavin, yes, you can actually recommend. And I was like, that's rather comforting. That's rather comforting to know. So before I get into some icebreaker questions, just to the viewers and everyone, again, hello. For anybody who is deaf or hard of hearing, I will be going over this interview after it's finished, and I will be saying the entire thing. So hopefully I will have the subtitles and everything on over the next day or so. And also, this will be a spoiler-free chat as well, so don't worry about being spoiled for the upcoming Frostheart Escape from Aurora, which is out officially on Thursday. But as you can see behind me, it has slipped out a little bit early. Thank God. Honestly, when I got that notification to say it was, right, because I had just run the bath, right? And I was off work. I just worked the whole weekend. I was off work, and I got the notification to say your pre-order Frostheart is in store. I just legged it to the bus. I just didn't even wait. I legged it to the bus.
I'm so thankful, honestly. It's so good. I loved your tweet that you put up where you had like the big pile of books and stuff. It was so good. Yeah.
The Tower of Books. Yeah, I was like pumpkin spice lattes, Frostheart 2. Oh, so good.
It was such a nice thing to see. In all seriousness, I've only just received the book myself. There was like massive delays due to the current goings on in the world, so I only just got a hold of it myself. So I kind of was sharing in your excitement there.
Oh, good. Yeah. I don't know who was more excited, me or you. And also, if anybody has any questions, I will be doing a little portion at the end for viewer Q&A. But if somebody does ask a question, and I think it will help inform the current answer or anything, we're just going to go with the flow a bit. So I will probably dip in and out of a viewer question if I think it's relevant. But don't think I'm ignoring anybody in the chat, because I do see you all, and I will save these questions for the end if possible. But I do want to start off with literally my favorite segment, and that is the icebreakers. So yay. Oh, actually, before I do that as well, cheers, Jamie.
Oh,
yes. Cheers. If anybody has a drink, lift it up for Jamie. Congratulations on Frostheart 2.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. So now the good stuff. First question. First icebreaker question. Are you a night owl or an early bird?
Oh, I love the mornings, and I would love to tell you that I'm an early bird, but I think I'm more of a night owl. I go to bed really late and I'm actually found I've been a bit more productive at night recently as well, even though I try and keep myself that I'm going to get up early in the morning and be super productive. And yeah.
Best intentions, best laid plans are just never go to plan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I agree with you. So what is the last great movie or TV show you watched?
Oh, well, I actually just finished watching, I'm a bit late to the game, but Mr. Robot on Amazon Prime. I loved that. I don't know, there was something about it that absolutely captivated me. I thought it was really cool. I loved it. And last movie, I mean, because I love the cinema. I go to the cinema as much as possible, which is why I found the last few months quite difficult. The last movie I saw was Onward, the Pixar movie, and yeah, I loved it. I was definitely, a few tears were shed at the end of that, and as might be obvious from Frostheart, I'm a big fantasy fan, so seeing Pixar's kind of take on that, I thought was really cool. I really enjoyed it.
That needs to get on Disney Plus ASAP because I've been
Yeah.
waiting to rewatch it and it's just taken so long. It's such a good movie.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're playing at.
Yeah.
These zombie apocalypse is coming. Who are three people from fiction you would want on your team? From fiction, could
Wow.
be books, could be TV show, could be movies. This is a big question. I'm sorry I laid this on you without
Yeah, no, I
preparation.
mean, it's a good question. It's an important question, I
It
feel.
is. It's very
Yeah.
important.
Oh wow. Maybe Arya Stark from Game of Thrones. She's got a bit of an undead slaying streak in her, I think.
Yeah, 100%.
Someone, maybe Sherlock Holmes, because I think he would be quite good at figuring out. Like, we would all be panicking and thinking where to go. I think Sherlock would keep level-headed. He would, have some good plans there, and you'd need someone quite fun as well. Maybe. Oh man, I'm going to blank. Yeah.
We can come back to this if you want.
Yeah. I need a third fun person just to keep the inevitable depressive apocalypse a bit more upbeat and happy. So yeah.
So yeah, well, we can come back to that.
Yeah. Sure.
So you have your own late night talk show. Which author or illustrator would you invite as your first guest? It could be a friend. It could be a friend. But it's going to be big. It's going to be a huge show. Who are you getting on for your first guest?
I've got so many friends who I would love to just chat to all night and stuff. I think
it would never end.
Yeah. But there's someone who I'm a massive fan of, and that's Jonathan Stroud. I really love I loved his Bartimaeus series, but I absolutely fell in love with Lockwood and Co. So I think it would be him, mostly because I actually saw him at the Puffin summer party last year, and it was one of my first Puffin events I've ever been invited to as like an author on their list.
Wow.
And I kind of jumped on him and just gushed for ages, and I think he was a bit startled, and I was just like, I love your work so much, kind of following him around. So I think I would like to start again with a more
more professional, and that would definitely help, I think. And I haven't actually read that series yet as well. Everybody screams at me to read. Is it The Screaming Staircase? Is that the first book in Lockwood and Co?
Yes, it is. Yeah. Oh my god, I love it so much. Genuinely, can't recommend it enough.
that's going on. So I've got two more icebreakers. One of them is you have to sing karaoke. What song are you choosing? Now I'll learn so much from you by this answer.
Yeah. Well, the last time I did karaoke, the one that did get me up very fast, you might tell that I'm a bit of a Disney nut, was King Louis' song from Jungle Book. Which I saw that was on the list, and I was like, that's the song I'm singing, and ran straight there after everyone else was doing like the big rock ballads and everything like that.
I like that answer.
Yeah, thanks.
It's a good song. It's one that I don't think I've heard anybody sing a karaoke before. So if somebody did start
doing karaoke, I discovered.
I can imagine
to pull it off.
Yeah, I'm sure you pulled it off. And then the last icebreaker before we talk more about you is, what were you like when you were Ash's age? And I caught Anna James off guard with this question. She gave the same reaction. She was shocked. She was like, "Oh my god, what?" What were you like when you were Ash's age?
Oh man, I wish I could say I was like in the tradition of middle grade books, like a bit naughty and a bit like. But I'm afraid I was actually quite boring. I think I was a bit like Ash in that I think you may need to ask my parents, but I think I was quite well behaved, and I I was quite quiet back then. I've definitely opened up more as I've got older. So I think I usually kept myself to myself and was just quietly drawing and scribbling away in the corner usually. And whereas my brother was kind of the rebellious middle grade main character, I was a bit more like the boring goody two shoes, unfortunately.
No, that's a good answer. You would be, you would make a great protagonist, because I love Ash. I think Ash is fantastic, and he's such like a great character to follow. So no, I think, yeah, even Jade said in the comments, relatable, Jamie, quiet and well behaved. Yeah, that is relatable. That is relatable.
That's it. Like, not trying to tread on any toes,
No. So I mean, so I always love asking those questions. So it's just a little bit different. But yeah, so I would love to know like, a little bit more about you as an author and an illustrator. That is okay. And the first one is, what is the typical, like now, not when you were Ash's age, but now, what is the like typical day in the life of being Jamie Littler like? What do you, I mean, you said you're not really much of an early bird, but do you have an alarm?
That's usually how the day starts, is me hearing the bird song and thinking, I should get up and make the most of the day. And then about 3 hours later, then waking up, scrabbling around in a panic that I've got up too late, drinking copious amounts of coffee. But in all seriousness, I'm quite structured. I found that's the way I work best. I know a lot of freelancers, especially people in children's books, who are they'll take it as it comes. They'll take the day where their muse takes them, as it were. But I find I work best with kind of structure. So I tend to get up. I tend to if I'm illustrating, I'll often have like, right, today I'm going to try and get 5 roughs done, or I'm going to try and plan out my cover, or I'm going to, if it's a particularly complicated illustration, like I'm going to get this one illustration done. And kind of same with books, is that when writing, is that I try and get a scene done, or a chapter, or a certain amount of words. I try and aim for like 2,000 words, even if it's not very good, or just try and get the thoughts out of my head and stuff. And yeah, I've got way better at taking breaks recently. I used to just work all through days and nights and weekends, but had a bit of a burnout a few years ago. So I've been much better at self-care, taking breaks, taking the evenings off if I can, and trying to make sure I have weekends and stuff. So yeah, again, kind of boring, just kind of structure. And I'm starting to learn some stuff about myself here.
No, that's great. No, actually, that's great. And I love that you are actually taking some self-care, because obviously, and like I remember you saying a couple of months back about even just like with the pen and stuff, it can be quite taxing on your wrist and like fingers and stuff. Yeah. So like self-care is important. Right?
Yeah. I've honestly, this is going to make me sound so old, but I've got really bad back pain at the moment from just sitting down working. And that was only caused from that like overwork thing. And I think it's a big thing in the art community on Twitter, at least at the moment, is artists being like, it's not cool to overwork yourself. You got, we got to get rid of this myth and take care of yourself, guys.
So that is the main part of advice for anybody who wants to be an illustrator.
I couldn't say it enough.
Yeah, take breaks.
Yeah,
that's true. So speaking of, being an illustrator then, how did you first become interested in wanting to be an illustrator? Was this something you always wanted as a child, or is it something that you've kind of fallen into? I saw a photo you put up, was it a couple of days ago, where you had drawn a face or something? But you've come a long way.
I'm glad you saw that. Yeah. I wasn't sure if I'd come that far, but yeah. I visited my parents, and my mum got out a scrapbook which had loads of my like early artwork and stuff. But yeah, that kind of answers the question, I guess, in that I've always loved drawing. It's always something that I've done. It's something I've never really thought about. It's just something that's been a part of me, without trying to sound too cheesy. I think a lot of kids draw when they're young, and I was certainly one of them. But whereas like my brother and sister, for instance, like my parents are both artists. My dad is like an animator, and my mum's a graphic designer. So I was kind of constantly surrounded by art. But I think whereas my brother and sister, who are younger than me, they kind of phased out from the drawing thing. It was something that I just had to do. Like it wasn't something that I was making myself do. It was just something I wanted to do. And because my dad was in animation, and I animation books everywhere. We were constantly going to see the latest animated film. So I was like, I think it's quite obvious in my art. I've got quite a big animation influence in there. And so I think for a long time, I actually wanted to be an animator, you know, following my dad's footsteps and things. But it was as I was, or like I thought maybe I wanted to get into film or something like that. But it was as I was getting older, I realized that what I was doing was like pages and pages and pages of making a film story and drawing it almost like a comic or something. And it was as I got older that I realized that's what I loved doing, was telling stories with pictures. And when I went to university to study, I actually applied to do animation. And I realized as I was like going around the courses and stuff that with animation, as much as I love it and adore it and it influences me and I'm constantly in awe of animation, you tend to work for a studio and you tend to do the story the studio is working on, and you tend to have to draw in a style that the feature or show or whatever needs, you know. And I thought that's not really what I wanted to do. I wanted to make my own stories and draw in my own way. And in the same, I remember in the same, when I was visiting universities and trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I started doing some of the going to see the illustration courses. And I was like, yeah, this is definitely what I want to do, you know. And I was, on the other hand, I was a massive book fan, you know, as I imagine most of the viewers here are as well. And I was realizing, you know, just thinking like, making stories, drawing them, I can't think of something I'd rather do, you know. So yeah, so I think it was always natural. It just took a while for me to find that like clear path, but I think deep down I always knew that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah, it's great that you actually mentioned about the whole you know, Disney and animated stuff as well, because I do think a lot of people who read like Frostheart or see your illustrations do think of this kind of huge animated world that could be adapted. In fact, even Sarah agrees animated Frostheart would be amazing.
Oh,
like, yeah,
I would.
Could you imagine?
I would love it so much. Obviously, like a film or a series would be great, but if I had choice, I would want it animated. Like, I just think that would be just the coolest thing. Yeah.
Oh gosh, 100%. Do you remember what the first illustrating job you ever got was?
I do. Yeah, it wasn't. It was whilst I was at university, and it was funny enough, it was for a festival that we're doing. It was a storytelling festival called Sting in the Tail, and it was down in Dorset, because I studied in Bournemouth. So it was like this. It was really cool. It was this festival of just telling stories, whether that be books or word of mouth or through theatre and stuff. And they needed a program illustrated. And I think they found me through my website or something. And I was only in second year at uni. And I remember we had this big project we needed to do. So I went to my tutors and said, I've actually just been offered money to do this job. And they were like, that's amazing. They were like, you should do that. Because they were like, what are we teaching you to do if not go and earn money through illustration? So I did that instead of the project I was meant to be doing at the time. But I so clearly remember as well that once the project was coming to an end and I'd finished the job I got paid for, like my first professional illustration job, I thought I was all done, but my tutors were like, oh no, but you still need to do the project to get your degree. Yeah. I was like, literally my world was shattered at that moment. I remember I had about 2 weeks to do a project that everyone else in my course basically had like 3 months to do.
Wow, no wonder you kind of overexerted yourself.
No, exactly.
I feel like it probably came from that.
Yeah, they trained us from the outset, I think. Yeah. But, and then my first book job was a book called Atomic by Guy Bass, who's an amazing author of middle grade books, and it was a kind of a mixture of comic and normal kind of middle grade book, and it was about these superhero brothers who had their mum was a super villain and their dad was a superhero, and it was really cool, like really really fun, amazing job to kind of leap into the publishing world with. Yeah.
Yeah, good way to get in there.
Yeah.
I do want to point out, Laura said a Frostheart game would be epic
Yes.
game. Can you imagine? Have you ever played Nino Kuni? I think it's
Yes,
called.
I
Like,
have. Yes.
I could imagine a Frostheart game like that.
I have to say, I'm such a big video game fan, so I think a lot of I if people often say like a movie or whatever, like I think if I had pick, I would love like this sprawling RPG set in the
Oh
snow.
my God, yeah.
Like if you could be your own Pathfinder captain and like, you know, go off into the world, I think that would just be my dream come true, to be honest.
Oh my gosh, who do I need to talk to about that? Because now I want that to happen. So, so the next, before I get into like Frostheart and like all of the good stuff about Frostheart too, is because you mentioned about doing a lot of illustrations for other people, as you mentioned, Guy Bass, but you then ended up dipping your toes into your own kind of story. And I was wondering, you know, with you having illustrated other people's stories, was it over the years, did you feel a longing for writing your own story and doing your own illustrations for it and have it be a sort of complete Jamie Littler package? Like, this is your thing, from the illustrations to the words, this is yours. So how did you make that leap? Why did you want to go from being an illustrator to both?
Yeah, well, it's exactly what you said. Like, I think it was always my intention. And like I was saying earlier, like my love was always telling stories with pictures. So like, even though I love drawing, I don't tend to just draw something just to draw a pretty picture. Like whenever I've drawn something, I've always like had a story attached to it. Even if I never did anything with it, I would think about the characters I was drawing or the world they were in or what they were doing or what was happening in the background. And I used to write and write and write as well in the background, you know, stories to go with these pictures I would draw. And when I graduated, that was always the intention, to be an author illustrator rather than just an illustrator. But turns out it's quite hard. So yeah, when I graduated, there was quite a lot of interest in my illustration, but not so much for my writing. There was a few people bit, but like it kind of fizzled out as things do in publishing. And at the time, I remember being quite down about it. But my awesome agent, Jodie Hodges at UA, United Agents, she was really good at just being like, it doesn't matter. Like, you've got your whole career ahead of you. Let's get you in. Let's get you into the industry. Let's get you drawing. Let's get you some jobs, so you can pay some bills, you know. And whilst you're doing that, you can see from the inside how books are made. And honestly, it was a great shout, because I did get to see professional authors, how it worked, what they were doing, what I was doing wrong, going through their text from the inside, sometimes before the text had been edited, because you get sent the manuscripts to start sketching and illustrating from. So I'd get to see how the books were changing and speak to the authors themselves and stuff. And I just learned so much. So during that time, even though I was very busy, I would try my hardest to keep writing. And it was quite hard, because I would jump from idea to idea. Sometimes it would just remain as an idea. Sometimes I would write half of it and then give up. Sometimes I would finish it and my agent would say, this just isn't working. Or we would actually send it off to publishers and they would be like, just, you know, there'd be something wrong with it or whatever. So it just took a lot of trying again and again and again. But then, yeah, I mean, and then Frostheart happened, and I think it was all those ingredients coming together, everything I'd learned, everything. Also, just trying to tell a story that I wanted to tell, rather than a story that was one problem of being in the industry, is I got to see the patterns of what was going on, and speaking to art directors what they were after, and that kind of fed a bit too much into my mind, that I started trying to make stories that I had no real interest in telling. So it was when I pulled back and said, what is it I want to do? And Frostheart was born, basically. So
well, so Frostheart came at a great time, actually, because if you had done, like, at least try to do Frostheart before you knew about all of this stuff, then it could have been a totally different story.
Yeah,
thank God you waited.
Yeah, well, no, it's true, and I did need to learn, and I did need to improve, and I think you never stop learning and improving, and I think I'm so glad that those things happened, you know, and I actually found some of the manuscripts I submitted, and I'm like, oh, thank goodness this never made it outside of this room or whatever, you know.
Yeah, like that smiley face when you were 3, you know, you just grew from there. You just learned from that. That is actually a fantastic way of getting into the first Frostheart, which we'll touch on briefly before the main event. And that is, and I already know the question, the answer to this, but I love the answer to this, so I really want to ask it. But a lot of people do want to know this too, but about the idea of Frostheart and how that came about, and also just getting that from being a fantasy to a reality. So as you said, you were in the business for a while, you were illustrating loads, and you kind of knew what was working, what wasn't working. But with Frostheart, when that came about, how did it kind of all formulate together? Which I already know, and I love the answer.
Yeah, it's quite a good one, I think. Like, but yeah, so Frostheart was very much like a mixture of not all my ideas, but a lot of the ideas I had. I said I couldn't really pick on an idea, and I had lots of ideas kind of flowing around my head that I liked bits of them, but I knew the story wasn't working. Or a real problem I had was that I had a world, I had a situation, but I couldn't think where to go from there. You know, it would be like, okay, that's all well and good, but what story are we telling in this world? You know, and
plot.
Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly. Like, that would keep tripping me up. So, but then I was walking to work. This is the one, you know, I think, and I have no idea why I was thinking about it, but I was thinking about the game. The floor is lava. You know,
so random.
Yeah, which couldn't be more opposite to snow, I guess. But yeah, but it was, yeah, the idea that you can't touch the floor, that you have to like either jump from furniture or climbing frames or whatever you're on, stay off the floor. And but we used to play this game, me and my brother and sister, with my granddad, who used to add another element of terror to the whole thing by pretending to be like a crocodile or a monster. And he would try and grab us as we were like, you know, running around the climbing frames and jumping from tree to tree and stuff. And for some reason I was thinking this and thinking that would be a really cool story, that this world where no one can touch the floor because there's monsters underneath, like you can't see them, but as soon as you touch it, they're going to like snap up and grab you.
Terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, terrifying, right? But also, like, it was because I started to put elements together that I liked from my other ideas of like I always knew I kind of wanted a misfit group of adventurers. Often a vehicle of some kind was included in that, like be it like a spaceship or a ship or a submarine or something. So I started to think, how would that world work? And the sleighs very quickly came into my mind, you know, like these huge galleon-sized sleighs. Because I was thinking like dog sledding would be a bit too slow, and I was like, I can't bear to write about dogs getting eaten by monsters and things.
Oh no!
I know. So I thought, you know, it'd be really cool if it was this kind of like almost primitive fantasy world, but that they'd found basically ancient technology that allowed the sleighs to move very fast. You know, technology they didn't really understand. That kind of kept them just slightly ahead of the monsters, that if they did their job just right, they could just make the run from stronghold to stronghold. And before I knew it, this world was like seriously building up so quickly in my head that I like almost ended up jogging to at the time I rented a studio, and I had a job I was meant to be working on, but I remember just for like a couple of hours just writing down this stuff coming into my head. And that was when I knew I was onto something that was working, because before, you know, I'd come up with an idea and I'd let it percolate and I'll do a bit here, there and everywhere. But this was like, I really need to tell this story, you know. So and it happened at a really good time. Again, like we were saying about timing, that the job I was working on got delayed a few months. And that can be really scary as a freelance. I'm sure if there's any freelancers listening, because especially with the glacial pace of publishing, I knew like the job had been moved back almost 4 months. And I thought, I usually got paid at the end of doing an illustration job. So I thought it's getting to a point where I'm not going to be paid for like 6 months. And because publishing moves so slowly, I was like, we're probably not going to be able to get a job in to fit that gap. You know, everything would be happening after the 6 months. So I thought, I'm going to have to do something with this time. So once I stopped kind of screaming and running in circles, I thought, like this literally happened about a week after I'd thought of Frostheart. So I was like, well, this is the perfect time to just sit down and try and write a book, like, you know, try and write that book that I keep on trying to write. And yeah, I actually managed to write Frostheart in those 4 months. And it was very different to the Frostheart we have now. I'd say, except for the soul and the soul of it is very much exactly the same, and the characters and stuff. But yeah, and I remember almost giving up on that as well. But I sent it to my agent, and she said, "Is this terrible? Is this something I should just stop doing?" And thank God I did, because she just said, no, this is definitely the best thing you've written. Like, keep doing this, keep doing this. And that was all I needed to just like keep going. And then we submitted it to the publishers, and at last got some traction. So yeah. So
fortunately,
yes.
like, seriously, like, I'm so glad. Like, and your agent as well being such a big support in that, and kind of telling you that, yeah, this is good. This is something that we can we can work with and get it out there and things. And a lot of people actually are wondering about how you kind of balance the writing and the illustrations. So how did the process of illustrating your own story go? Like, were you illustrating side by side? Did the illustrations come first or last, or how did that work?
Yeah, I'm like, I think very visually. So I'm always, even when I'm writing, I'm thinking of the illustrations. So you could, at any time I'm writing, you could pause, and I would be able to tell you what illustration I would like to do at that very moment. So I think, and at the beginning of the process, I tend to sketch as much as I'm writing. So I tend to do loads of ideas. I've got my notebook here. It's actually for Frostheart 3, so I'm going to try and find
open it.
You can kind of see, like, there's little doodles that I do next to like my writing. Like, you can just, I mean, most people won't be able to understand what they are except for me, because they're very much done like as I'm working, you know, just trying to figure out like landscapes and environments and stuff. So that's kind of like the early process that I'm kind of drawing and thinking up ideas and concepts and dialogue all at the same time. But then when it comes to like knuckling down, I tend to do the writing first, because I don't know, it just helps me to separate, like just focus on the writing, especially that, because I've been illustrating for 10 years before I became a writer. Even though there's still a million things I could learn with illustration, I knew that, like, look, that's going to deal with itself. Like, you know, that's what I know. It's the writing I need to focus on right now. So I just put all my energy in just trying to make the best story I possibly could. And then by then I kind of had already been thinking about loads of the illustrations. So it felt a bit easier just to be like, and now I get to draw it, you know, like, so that, you know, like, so yeah, it tends to be both at the same time, then writing, then illustration. Yeah, but then the two can change. So like, often I would draw something and the drawing would look better than what I described, so I'll go back to the text and change that, or vice versa. Like during edits, we'll be like, this doesn't make sense, or this is more impactful if we do it that way, and I'd have to go back and change the an illustration or something, which obviously takes a bit more work than something.
Yeah. I was going to say, and even for like regular authors as well, like I can imagine they can just do the draft and that's it. That's all they have to do. But with you have to do both, and that's that must be great though. At the same time,
it's a blessing and a curse, as you say. Like, yeah, I think it is great. It is really good. Like sometimes you can get a bit overwhelmed, but when you come out the other end, you're like, that was so fun. I want to do it again.
Yeah. Chris also said Gavin's going to steal that notebook. She is right. I want to somehow get my hands on it.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of notes in it already. But like,
good. Because when I get my hands on it, I want to like pretty much have the entire Frostheart 3. Kirsty's still okay mad at Jamie after Frostheart 2. Kirsty's literally just finished it. She loved it, but I know what she means. So that's just
I think I might do, but I'm really sorry.
It's all good. So last question about Frostheart before I move on to Frostheart 2 is the entire world of Frostheart. It feels like very dystopian, as you've said, with like the snow sea and the monsters. And even going into Frostheart 2, we find out a little bit more about this world, and it's like it opens up so like dramatically and so greatly because we see more of it. So I just want to know like how I mean, you touched on this as well, but like how you originally had, because with the strongholds, it's such a fantastic concept, by the way. I love how you're going right from stronghold to stronghold. But like in terms of world building, like you mentioned this like a little bit, but like did you have like a full-on plan? Did you plot it? Like did you write it all down? Do you have like a cheat sheet kind of thing? Like how are you keeping tabs on your world that you've created?
Yeah, it is really hard actually. Like I love world building. I really love it. It's one of the things I love the most about writing is creating this place that feels like it exists but hasn't yet. And you're right, I do actually have a cheat sheet which I was editing just before this just before this chat actually. But it's yeah, I just put in like more than anything just to remind myself who's who, where's where, what's what, things I've mentioned. But yeah, like with the world, I knew it was a fantasy, but I knew I didn't want to just do a kind of like typical sword and sorcery, you know, like set in medieval times and things like, which I love. But I felt like I wanted to do something a bit different that perhaps isn't seen quite as much in middle grade and stuff. So I love history and I love medieval times. I find it really fascinating. But another time I really like is that kind of Neolithic prehistoric time, you know, this kind of like, and talking about strongholds, I've always liked the idea of like different tribes with really strong identities that, you know, they're not in control of nature, kind of nature's in control of them. So they're kind of, you know, hunter-gatherers moving with the hunt and at the mercy of predators and nature. And, you know, when the world was kind of still hugely forested and there's these kind of like shamanistic ritualized kind of beliefs of like spirits and like things that they couldn't understand, they would see as magic and things like that kind of stuff I've always really loved. So I always kind of knew that was the kind of vibe I wanted the world to have. It was something that I just really looked forward to drawing, but also and writing about, but also like the idea of kind of like if we all went extinct now, or not extinct, but like our civilization crumbled now, which doesn't seem too far-fetched at times.
Yeah, and maybe Frostheart is the book from the future.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then in the far future, the few human survivors that have managed to like like keep living, that they find our technology that somehow still works. They don't know how it works, it just does. And that kind of concept was really appealing to me, like both from like a story point of view and a design point of view. Yeah, and it has been a challenge, especially in middle grade, because you have I'm already very guilty of making my books a bit too big. And
bigger. I want them bigger. Like seriously, I could have like a full-on.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, because I there's so much I want to explore and show and tell, and especially the third book that I'm writing right now, I'm really struggling with that balance between what really matters, which is the characters and their kind of emotional story, and just like, oh, but I want to show this and I want to show that, and this will be really fun. That's been a real challenge, is just fitting it in the word count. But also, I'm a big believer in not showing everything. Like some of my favorite fantasy worlds, one that comes off the top of my head is the Old Kingdom by Garth Nix, where it's like there's a lot that he hints at stuff, but there's a lot he doesn't tell you about. So you can kind of fill in some of those blanks. You know, I believe that you should show what's necessary to the story, but I like the idea that there's a world out there that goes on beyond what you can see in the story, you know, that feels lived in and that feels real. So it was also making sure that I didn't explain every minute detail, because I think sometimes that can even take away some of the magic that you get from like hinting at something and then the reader's kind of filling in the blanks. Like, you know, usually that's probably going to be more exciting than if you just go and say, this is what it is, guys. You know, like, Yeah, so it's a balance, I think, but yeah.
And you do it well. And it's funny you say that about filling in the blanks and kind of being a bit vague on some things. I feel like that's what I'm going to have to do with this next section, because I genuinely, because honestly, when I say like I love Frostheart 2 so much, and I do think it's better than the first one, like who would have believed it? But I think honestly, like I love it, I love it. But I do think because a lot of people wouldn't have read it just yet. It's not officially out just yet, but some people have, which is fantastic. And I see people in the comments saying, yeah, like Kirsty saying, I need Frostheart 3 right now. Thank you very much. Same. So I would love to talk about Frostheart 2 then. And I want, like, and you don't have to be modest or anything, but is this, like, Frostheart 2 so far your favorite book in the series? And can you explain why it is? If you can, like, give us some, like, teasers of why you love Frostheart 2 so much?
Yeah, I think I certainly from reading interviews by other authors and speaking to other authors, it does seem to be their favorite books tend to be the one they've just written.
That's exactly what Anna James said. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So I do think I prefer Frostheart 2. Maybe until Frostheart 3 comes out. That's if Frostheart 3 sorts itself out. At the moment, it's just a mess of chaos. And
yeah. Leave it where it is. It will sort itself out eventually.
But, like, yeah, I think Frostheart 1 I will always love because it was my debut, and just the experiences that I associate with it, the new experiences and the excitement and just everything that went with it, I think Frostheart will always, have a place in my heart, like, as it were, my frosty heart. But yeah, I do think Frostheart 2 is certainly better written, and I think it's because I learned a lot just even through writing the first book. I learned a lot, and also, as you said before, the story expands suddenly. I think Frostheart 1 was very much saying this is the situation and this is the world, but then Frostheart 2 is like, and now this is what's going on. I think we get into it a lot deeper, and like the plot, which is the outline has always been there. It's I think we really get to delve into that a lot more. Start to show what's perhaps going on behind some of the scenes, things that were hinted at in the first book, start to get a few more answers and things like that. So it was fun. It was, I guess like a lot of series, it was kind of putting it up a gear, and being able to say, it could get a bit more intense, a bit more like, here we go kind of thing,
It starts off quite intense. It's like it has this huge cinematic opening, I think, and it's like, I can visualize it as a movie. I really can. That's the kind of like this world that it has been set by you. It's very cinematic. Which is honestly fantastic.
Yeah, and is coming in there, like from cinema and animation and stuff, I think. But
yeah. So what was the most challenging thing for you writing a sequel? Was it, to be fair, was it expectation? Because I do think with you having released Frostheart, it was received really, really well and lots of people love it. So I guess was the most challenging aspect of writing a sequel, is it the expectation, or was it just actually kind of, for yourself, was it the writing, was it the illustrating, or was it expectation?
Yeah, I think both. I think you hit the nail on the head there. Certainly expectation. I'd say weirdly even more so now with the third book, because I wrote Frostheart, just wrote the book I wanted to write, and just thought, if someone else likes this, then I will be so happy. So to have that kind of reaction was just so insane to me. I just couldn't get over it, genuinely. And then there was, to the point where there was still a part of me that thought, I think I might have fluked this, and that I think people are going to realize the truth with book 2. So whilst I was very scared going into book 2, I thought, oh, it was a nice run, but like
downhill from here.
Yeah. But now that like the few people being really kind about book 2 as well, I think that really shook me whilst I was writing book 3, because it's been really difficult for various reasons. And I think then I was like, oh my God, what if I don't land this thing? Like, you know, so, I mean, it can be crippling. And I think I do, honestly, I try and bear it in mind, but I try to put it aside, because I think I try and go back into the mindset I was with book one, which was just try to remember to tell the story that I'm trying to tell, you know, because I think if you start trying to impress people or write for others, I think you're in danger of doing what I said earlier, which is to write a story you don't necessarily feel anything for, which I think can make quite a soulless, bland story, you know. So it was trying to remind myself to keep to the plan, you know, keep to what I want to be doing, and also just certainly the writing was a challenge. It's just given me such a whole new just so much respect for people who do this, like you know, even bigger stories than Frostheart, you know, like because when you're trying to juggle all these threads and the world building, and like there's quite a big cast in Frostheart, which was never an intention, but then as soon as you had this sleigh which has a crew on it, like it started off with, I was almost like, they were almost nameless people, but then the more we did, the more we were like, no, we need to give them names, even if they're just background characters. But then the more I wrote and the more my editors helped, the more we were like, oh, we want to hear a bit more about this person, or what's this guy doing, and then before you know it, you've got this huge cast that, you know. So it was certainly trying to make sure everyone had their time in the sun whilst not detracting from Ash's story. And also, but the second book's really hard because you do want to give people some answers, so that they're not just getting questions thrown at them all the time. But at the same time, you do need to build up and lead to the finale, you know. Yeah, so that was a real challenge. But luckily, I have an amazing editors, and every time I would get really stuck, I would like ring them or go for a coffee with them, and we would talk through it. And usually the answer was there all along. It's just sometimes you need that soundboard to kind of speak to and make sure you're not just going mad and that, you know, you're not going some horrible.
Oh, the reassurance, just to make sure that I'm on the right path, kind of.
Yeah, and also editors are just wizards, you know. They're just like, you'll be so stuck on something, and they'll be like, well, what about this, or why don't you just do it this way? And you're like, it just opens everything up and makes it so much better. So it's definitely a collaborative thing. And my editors were just so helpful at like making sure we were on course and going forward. So so it was a challenge, but a fun one, you know. Like weirdly enough, it probably wasn't as hard as writing Frostheart 1. At least we didn't go through as many, like Frostheart 1 was almost completely rewritten, whereas Frostheart 2, it went through quite a few edits, but it was very much like what I started with kind of survived till the end, just with tweaks and adjustments and stuff, you know.
It's because you knew what you were doing at that point. I love it.
Well,
actually, talking about the crew actually leads very nicely into my next question. But before we do, Danny, about the expectations. Danny said biggest challenge meeting Gav's expectations. That is a huge challenge.
I'm not gonna lie. I literally, you tweeted that you had received your copy online, and I genuinely had a sleepless night. I was like, what if he it? Like, so I was so pleased the next day where you were so kind, and I was like, that was like Christmas had come early, you know.
I love that, because it came as a surprise to me as well. I had no idea I was on NetGalley, and then I logged in. I did log in almost every day to see if it would pop up, because I knew there wasn't going to be physical proof. And then I just saw that cover. I saw this cover on NetGalley, and I freaked. And then I download, because I'd already asked Puffin for auto approval, because I knew as soon as Frostheart comes on, I don't want to ask to request it. I need it immediately. So I got the auto approval like weeks ago. I was prepared. Downloaded it straight away. I had a bit of a sleepless night because I read it until like 2 o'clock in the morning, and then was at work.
I've had to read that book in a day, and it's quite a lot to read. So I'm impressed.
As soon as I start, I do not finish. If it's a book I'm really excited for, if I know it's there, I know I won't think about anything else until I've read it.
Yeah.
So I had to do it. But anytime. Anna did say Frostheart made her fall back in love with middle grade. So thanks for writing what you wanted. It really got to me.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you.
That is lovely.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah, I love comments like that. People keep them coming. We'll make Jamie feel more embarrassed. Come on. So I did actually really want to talk about the characters then, because as you mentioned with the crew, the Frostheart, they were expanding. You actually had this really colourful cast here on your hands, and the reception to in the first Frostheart, everybody loved the characters. Like the relationship mainly between Ash and Tobo was like literally one of the highlights of the first book. So I'm wondering what fans can expect from the second one between Ash and Tobo. Like, can you tease anything with them?
Yeah, I mean, it was that was definitely a challenge. I think actually that was the biggest challenge in the book, because again, no spoilers, but their relationship has changed ever so slightly from the first book. You know, I think they see that they gain strength from each other. You know, like it's certainly not a one-sided relationship, and it's not anything either of them expected. So I think we see a bit more of that. I think we see that relationship evolve and develop, and that, you know, it's not necessarily just Ash depending on Tobu's, you know, experience and skill. It certainly goes kind of both ways. Yeah, I think that's what I can say without spoilers. It was very important to me because, as you said, like, I'm so glad readers responded that way, because to me, going into Frostheart, before I'd even written a word, I knew that this relationship between a boy and this big, grumpy, scary Yeti was always going to be a major part of the story. At one point, before I properly got into the story, it was just those two. So they are like an integral part to Frostheart. And I think I've always been trying to be quite aware of that. And it's always the first thing to worry me that I'm not doing it. You know, am I doing this? Is it still that story and stuff? So like, yeah. So yeah, and I've just written some bits in book 3 as well, which hopefully has some good payoff and stuff. So you know, so
I was gonna say stop teasing me, but at the same time, this is we need this so people will, you know, buy Frostheart 2, buy Frostheart 3, and be excited for it. So keep it coming. I could see you struggling so much not to give any spoilers.
I'm sorry. Very dangerous, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. But also Luna, like, let's not forget Luna. She is also a huge fan favorite, and you with Frostheart 2, will we get more backstory? But also, for anybody who loves Luna, we did just get the Puffin Book of Big Dreams, and it has a Luna short story in it as well. So do you want to mention that, but also talk about what we can expect from Luna in the second Frostheart?
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually, because the Puffin Book of Big Dreams is very much her kind of origin, you know, which was really fun to write. But yeah, like Luna, I love Luna to pieces as well, and Luna is so important to the story, because whilst I was writing book 1, I was so aware that it starts off quite grim and sad, and you know, Ash is in a horrible situation, and I was very aware that I don't want this just to be a misery fest, you know, like so I was so excited for the Frostheart team to come as a whole, because I knew they would help bring that positivity. But Luna particularly was going to be that kind of ray of sunshine in Ash's life. But it was very important to me as well that she wasn't just a kooky sidekick, you know, and that was certainly something my agent and editors were very keen as well. So we were like, we want to make sure she is her own person, and she's got her own aims and objectives. And whilst she's there to certainly in the first book, she's very much a support for Ash. She really helps him be braver and stronger than I think he would be without her. perhaps in book 2 we certainly see more about what Luna is trying to achieve, her kind of her own insecurities, like that she's not always this like, you know, like ready for anything, ready for action kind of kick butt adventurer, that she you know, she's going through things as well, and her mind is not always going to be like there to support Ash and stuff. Like he may need to be doing some of the supporting himself, you know. So yeah, so hopefully that grows a bit there as well.
Amazing. Honestly, I could give pretty much all of these characters a hug as well, because, you know, now like reading Frostheart 2, and there's like things about Luna where I do just want to like, I just want to hug them all. Just some viewer comments there. Casey said she wants to give Tobu the biggest hug.
I reckon he's very soft, to be honest. But,
yeah. Oh yeah, right. I wouldn't be able to wrap my arms around him. Just really like that. So also Casey said by Frostheart 50 for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, because we will be getting 50 more, right? Claire, you can ask your question when I'm talking, because Claire's been dying to ask this question. So when we're talking about Frostheart 3, then you can ask the question. She's been dying to ask this question. Chris said that the captain is Pris's favorite character. Yay! Honestly,
I love writing captain. I mean, I've heard lots of pronunciations of her name, and I don't want to say any of them is wrong, because I think they should be pronounced as you hear them. I've always said Nuck. My editors have always said Nook, and I'm happy with either way you go. But if it sounds weird as I'm saying it, please excuse me. But I love Captain Nuck. She's every time I get to write her, I have a smile on my face. So yeah.
Good. Yeah, these characters also bring you joy, and that's what we want. Nina can't wait for the book to arrive in the mail and bring some magic and wonder to her self-isolation. And it will do that.
I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, me too. Frostheart made economics class a bit better to sit through. Excellent. Way more fun.
Yeah. I shouldn't be condoning it.
Yeah, no.
But I'm glad you did.
Keep to your studies though. And thanks for tuning in at 4 a.m. as well.
Wow. Oh, wow, good effort. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Danny's painting the edges of her Frostheart while listening to us. Oh my gosh, please show us on Twitter, tag us, please. I want to see the final. It sounds great, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sounds really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, also because Casey said, I'm glad you didn't make Luna just sit there and assist Ash. She's her own human. Yes, that's exactly what you were saying. Yeah,
and that's it. I think your characters should be there for a reason. Like as you said, like you attach to stories. Certainly myself, I attach to stories where you can try and you believe these people could exist, you know, and I think just to have characters there just for one reason and one reason only, I think is a recipe for disaster. You know, that you might end up just with quite bland, boring characters. So it's certainly something I at least try really hard to try and avoid. Obviously, some of the crew, I think there's 8 or 9 crew members. If I gave them all like loads of in-depth, this would become a kind of Lord of the Rings size thing. But, like, certainly the main characters that I've picked, but even those kind of not as important ones, I want them to at least have quite clear personality traits and things they want to be doing and stuff. So
oh my god, there's a moment in the second one, and it's not a spoiler or anything, but it's to do with sticks. And that's not a good stick. Like, oh my god, that is like one of my favorite moments. It's a random moment. I love it. I love because it's very quirky, and I just love little character moments like that. It's hilarious.
Yeah, that was really fun to write. Yeah, it was nice to get a bit more involved with those bits. You know?
yeah, just to bring them out just a little bit more as well.
Yeah.
So the Leviathans then. Oh, if you didn't know this as well, actually, this is a total accident, by the way, as well. But Believathon is almost an anagram for Be Leviathan. So it's kind of encouraging people, right? I had no idea about this until I saw it. but it's like an anagram for B Leviathan. You just need to change a couple of letters around. But I think that's hilarious.
Yeah,
it's totally accidental.
Yeah.
But the Leviathans then. So a lot of people who read the first book, and I remember discussing the first book with the people tuning in for the Frostheart live show, is that a lot of people felt like the Leviathans might have been a little misunderstood. They had like a bit more history than we've been told or like led to believe. So there's also correlation with Ash's power as a song weaver. And honestly, there's so many exciting things about all of that in the second book. I know this for a fact. But can you tell us about like a little bit about the Leviathan and Ash relationship in the second book and kind of like how that comes into play? Because we do find ourselves in Aurora first and foremost.
Yeah.
We're in Aurora, and as the title says, escape from Aurora. So like, can you elaborate on why they need to escape from Aurora? Or
trying to think of a way to do it without being spoilery. But yeah, we certainly learn more about the Leviathans in this one. And there was definitely more to know about them. And yeah, I think with Frostheart, I was always trying to do a kind of like mirror images. Like there's quite a few like there's a few things that Ash shares with Tobu in their stories. Certainly things you'll discover later on. There's things kind of lots of similarities between Ash and Shard, and I think I wanted to do that with groups as well. You know, like the way strongholders treat songweavers and the way everyone else treats Leviathans. I did want this kind of like cyclic kind of like circles of mistrust and I guess hate is, I mean, it's a strong word, but it's kind of what it is, or fear, I guess, fear and hate. And I think we start to see a lot more of that. Like Ash has always known that songweavers aren't a welcome aspect of society. I think in book 2, he sees just how far that goes. And I think he starts to learn a bit more of his own prejudices, I guess, of what he might have thought was true, and perhaps isn't as true as he thought and stuff. So yeah, but I'm going to stop myself there before I start to reveal too much. But
yeah, so I feel evil. I feel evil because like I've seen like it's on the tip of your tongue, but you can't really say it. Even Cece said we need another show just to discuss the spoilers.
I know, right? Yeah.
Even Francesca has so much to say, but so many spoilers if I say or ask everything. That's like the best thing about this series, though, is that, as you said before, these books do feed into each other. So it's kind of hard to sort of segregate them from like each of them because it's like it feels like it feels like Lord of the Rings for kids. Yeah, really. It's like it's a trilogy.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It was always kind of made as such. And I think going forward with future series, I think it would be fun to change that up. Like going back to Jonathan Stroud right at the beginning. I loved the way his Lockwood books kind of are almost their standalone cases. I mean, you've not read them, so you don't know, but they're almost like a case, like a Sherlock Holmes investigation, where it's kind of rounded up in the book, but there's threads that kind of link all the books and then get bigger and bigger. And that kind of format really appeals to me in the future. Certainly finding the challenges of doing just a continual trilogy. But I really like doing it as well, because I did just want to tell this massive adventure, and you can't do that in just one middle grade book, not the size I was going for. So it has been genuinely a dream come true, being able to just tell this big adventure I had in my head continuously in sequence has been great. But and as I was saying to you before we went live, because I've been writing book 3 so much, I'm getting bits confused with book 3 and 2, like what happens in what book. So I'm being very careful not to do some massive spoilers that most people won't even have a clue are coming. Well, I hope at least, but yeah.
No, it's very fair actually. And I bet you're probably thinking now, maybe you should split like Frostheart 3 into 2 books. I mean,
I was just screaming to the sky saying, why aren't I doing 4 books?
Yeah, like now you have to condense it all into one.
Yeah.
But we will talk about the future of Frostheart in a second.
Yes.
I do have a couple more Sorry, I'm taking so much of your time.
No,
But
it was good fun. Yeah.
Another huge aspect of the Frostheart series is Ash's parents, and
Mm.
I think everybody who was reading the first book are rooting for Ash to find them. So will we get some answers? Is essentially the question. Will we know more? Will we know everything in Frostheart 2, or just a little bit?
You'll certainly know more.
Mm.
I think you do get answers.
You do.
Yeah, as I was saying, like I was trying to be very careful not to just ignore every question being asked until book 3. So I did, I hope, give some answers, or at least, you know, not just be frustratingly like just not giving up anything. But I think, yeah, you've certainly not. You won't get the whole story, but you will start to see what you will start to piece things together. I think you might be a bit like, I think again, there's more going on here than we realized, and things might not be quite as simple as just finding them, perhaps, you know, like yeah.
Yeah. Infuriating. Yeah, honestly, it's serious. Oh, this is why I need people to read it straight away. I had when people are reading it on NetGalley, I was messaging them like, "Will you let me know when you finish?"
I'm glad it's provoked that reaction, though. It's
yeah. Oh,
it
no, it's great. It's that interactivity, I guess, between like the reader and the text. You know, it's kind of now you've got us talking about it and wanting to know everything before you know we're supposed to, really, because there's still more of the story to tell. So
yes, absolutely.
we're not supposed to know. We're not supposed to know.
Yeah.
Were there any moments in this book that were really hard to write or hard to illustrate? And I guess this is like another big one as well. I guess like was there anything?
Yeah, certainly. Like what I was saying earlier, it was just that the it's amazing how hard like for instance continuity is between such a big story. And we were saying earlier, like making sure all the threads are still being followed. Luckily, as I said before, I've got some amazing editors, Naomi Colthurst and Maggie Rosenthal in the States, and they're so good at catching up on things. And even if they miss stuff, copy editors as well, they're like, we noticed in book 1 you said this, but in book 2 this is going on. It's like, thank you so much for picking that up, and it goes into my cheat sheet, you know, like how people are related to each other and stuff. But so that was certainly a challenge to write, and as I said earlier, like trying to juggle everyone's story, making sure everyone gets their moment without overshadowing Ash's story. Illustrating, yes, this book was so much harder to illustrate than the first book, because so much going on in these illustrations, and some of them there's like, you know, just the size of everything, the way everything expands both in content and size and number. So there were some illustrations that I really had to kind of take a deep breath, like kind of crack my bones in a kind of
Well, speaking of, do you have a favorite illustration from it that you can share? Like, did you get one prepared?
I think, well, number one, before we go on the cover, because I actually really struggled with this cover, because book 1 I had such a clear idea of what I wanted the cover to be, and with the help of my amazing designer Ben Hughes, we came up with this thing that we were really positive about, and we were really like, this is the one and stuff. This one, it was like trying to keep the same theme, but take it, and for me it was the color, like getting the kind of the green and the reds without it looking Christmassy. And I went through I went through about like just dozens of color tryouts and trying to figure things out, and I was banging my head against the desk after a while, like I just cannot figure this out. And I don't know when it clicked. I think it was when I stopped taking things quite so literally, like with the Aurora Borealis and things, like doing, you know, not doing it this kind of teal color, but just doing it this bright almost like pinky red, and suddenly then it clicked and it all fit together, and I was like, yes, like this is the cover. So I'm really happy with how the cover turned out, because it was way more challenging than the first one. And then I think, without giving any spoilers, would be the map, which you can kind of see there.
Yes. Yes, I need that printed and on the wall. That is a beautiful map.
So, yeah, because I really wanted a map. Even in the first book, I really wanted to tell that kind of big epic fantasy that has a map. And just for space reasons, we couldn't fit it in the first book. Although we could have crammed it in, but we thought maybe it feeds into the story a bit better, that Ash doesn't know the world. So if we show too much of it, the world might feel too big before Ash has even set foot outside of the Fira stronghold. So I think this was the right time to do it, because Ash has headed out. He's gone to the center of the world. He learns a lot more. So it was so nice to be able to draw the map. And it's also been really helpful to me, because I always had a very rough map where I could kind of plot where people were going and stuff. But now that it's kind of in print and done, it's been really helpful. Yeah, like kind of figuring out where things go and stuff. So
nice. Well, actually, I've got a couple of viewer questions that relate to that. I was going to save some to the end, but it kind of relates to this. Anna asked, the upper arm of the star kind of inspired by masonry.
Arm of the star. It actually wasn't, but that's a really cool observation, I think. What the idea behind when you say starred, I assume they mean like the kind of the central.
I think so. Yeah, that's what. Upper arm of the star. Yeah.
Yeah. So what it was, there's quite a big tale to this, but what it was basically Aurora is because each stronghold has its symbol, and you probably all noticed, but each part will often have the symbol as the main location they're in that part will have a symbol that kind of relates to that, like and the Aurora symbol is this kind of long like diamond shape, which is basically meant to represent Aurora's kind of, I don't think it's too spoilery because it's in the first chapter, it's kind of built within a mountain, an extinct volcano, so it's kind of meant to represent the volcano, which is where that kind of shape came from. And we actually originally tried to do the full diamond shape as the die cut thing, but unfortunately it just got too close to the edges of the cover and would tear. So we had to, that was another reason we had to completely redesign the cover. But so we kept the circle, but just added the triangular bits to still kind of retain that that Aurora symbol. Yeah. So whilst that sounds really cool, the masonry thing, I love things like that, but unfortunately not. Or is that what I want you to think?
Jade asked, a lot of authors don't have much control over the cover. Was that different for you because you're the illustrator? Did you get more say in the final outcome than usually authors will get?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. I mean, even as an illustrator, illustrating other authors' books, it was more often than not, I would be given the brief and they were like, we would like the cover to be like this. And they would give me a very rough thing. And I would like try and put my spin on it and make it my own and send them a few variations. But it was often a lot more controlled, a lot more, they had a much clearer vision, but Puffin have just been so amazing. And as soon as they signed me up, they were like, we want to be true to your vision. We want this to be how you see things and stuff. And honestly, like to extents that I never would have thought they would even gone to, like I'd go to Ben, my designer, and he would just be like, yeah, what do you want to do? Which is
too much leniency.
Yeah, because I just get carried away. So I gave him like 20 something designs. I think I put some up on my Twitter, and Instagram, just loads of thumbnails and like, we could do this or we could do that, and he would take it to his people in Puffin, and they would kind of steer it towards what they would think would be more successful. And obviously he would have his input, because even though I work with design, I'm not a designer and he's the designer. So I'd often defer to him if he said, I think this will work better. He was usually right. So he would help me in that way. But he was always working towards my idea, which was so liberating and just really cool. You know, it really got to make it how I wanted it to look. So yes, I'm super chuffed.
Excellent. Well, saying that then, we'll go on to like the final section before the little viewer Q&A, if that's okay. But that is, and I think everybody wants to know about the future of Frostheart, because Frostheart 2 isn't the last one. There is going to be another one. Is there, like, do you already know how you're going to end the series? Because you said, I think you already said that Frostheart 3 is going to be the last one.
Yeah.
Do you know how you're going to end it? Like, is that in your notebook?
Yeah, it was one of the first things I wrote. I'm really sorry.
The fact it has to end.
Yeah, I'm a big believer that a story should have an ending, and I think an ending is only successful if you're kind of building towards that ending. So yeah, unfortunately, or fortunately, the ending has always been there since maybe one of the earliest moments. Obviously, bits have changed about it and stuff, but getting there is a bit more of an adventure, you know, like, you know, the movements, but it was always kind of, I remember going to my first meeting with my editors once Puffin had signed me up, and the ending is very much still that ending that we spoke about on that day. So it does have a clear, definite ending in book 3, but it's hard, yeah, because like, I never want to say never, and the thing is, like, as a creator, I'm like, I've and I'm sure many creators out there will empathize. You've always got a million ideas circling around your head, so there's so many stories I want to tell, so many worlds I want to explore, and characters I want to meet and introduce to readers and things, that I'm really excited to delve into. So I think there's lots of things that I'm looking forward to doing, but I would certainly never say never. And Frostheart has such a massive place in my heart, and it means so much to me. And I've kind of deliberately left, there's a few things that could do with some more exploration, kind of on purpose, you know, because in case we might revisit this world or these characters or whatever, there's things there, you know, but for the time being, it's definitely a trilogy with an intended ending, and but hopefully that will give a better story for the reader.
Yeah,
you know, like,
we will definitely be grateful for the fact that, because sometimes, like, say if a TV show or something's been cancelled before it's like due to end, and then there's no ending, there's no satisfaction from it. But to know that this is,
things can outstay their welcome sometimes, and that would be a massive nightmare of mine. And or even that something will come to an end, but then it because it's successful, it carries on again, and that can sometimes feel as though it's kind of like, oh, we're going to do this now, you know, like, so I think I would certainly never say I would never revisit the Snow Sea again. I think I would do it if I ever did. I would make sure I was saying something new, something different, and that there was a good reason to be going back. I do actually have ideas of other things I would like to do and things in the Snow Sea, which I think could be really cool. But at the moment, I think it's the trilogy's telling Ash's story, and to a greater extent the story of the Snow Sea at this time, and hopefully, you know, it will be good. It'll be a satisfying ending.
It will. Have you ever seen Pretty Little Liars?
I haven't actually, I'm afraid.
Well, I mean, that did drag on, like, because the whole mystery is who is A. So if we had like Frostheart 48 and Ash still hadn't found his parents, I guess then we would have said, you know,
absolutely, you start to just be like, come on guys, we need the answer, like, or like I have a love-hate relationship with The Walking Dead. I don't know if you know.
Oh my god,
and that for me, there's times where I've been riveted by it and so engrossed, and there's times where I'm like, come on, like, you know, and just everything seems to be changing or moving forward. And yeah, I was like, I don't want Frostheart to become that. I would rather tell something else that could be really exciting and fresh and yeah. And the thing is, I think one thing that Frostheart showed me, and how long it takes to make these series, is how short life is. Because I've been working on this series for years. Even like before it was released, there was like a long old build up from when I wrote it. And you think if you do a series in like, if it takes you like 6 years, 5-6 years to do a trilogy, you think you only have so many.
Yeah.
So that kind of put that fear in me as well, where it's like, there's so many stories to tell and there's so little time, you know. Like, so the last thing I would want to do is be like flogging a dead horse when there's the opportunities to tell so many other stories. But that's not to say I would never say never, you know, like, yeah.
Yeah, Kelly did say like an extra novella or a World Book Day book. That would be incredible.
I mean, in all seriousness, I don't actually know at this moment, but I would not be surprised if something like that would happen. And maybe that's I'd never even thought of that. That's even quite cool. Like maybe some little short stories from around the snow. That could be really fun. Like stories
for Toby.
Just in a little spot of the world or something, like
hilarious.
Captain Nux. I have actually thought of a more like piratical adventurer kind of, you know, like how could, like, that would be quite fun, of just like pathfinders going on
so
a run.
many great ideas, you know, so many great ideas. We do have a question. Do you have an idea for a new series right now?
I do. In all seriousness, I have about 10 ideas, but I have about 3 that I keep returning to, and I've got one that I'm really excited about. It kind of wrestles with another one. They kind of fight for top spot, but I do have an idea. Nothing signed up or anything yet, but like an idea that I'm really keen on, and it will still have that Frostheart vibe. I think I'll always be telling kind of those kind of, well, not always, I suppose, but like an adventure, that kind of spirit and soul will still be there, I think. So yeah. Maybe more soon, I don't know.
That's good. As long as we're not saying goodbye to your writing or your illustrations or anything. You. Francesca said, are any of the characters inspired by people you know or characters from your favorite books? And Claire, you can ask your question now if you'd like. I know she's still bursting to ask.
Generally, no. I know lots of authors say that it is, and for me, it's not. For me, it tends to be who is needed in the story, and then I think of this person would be really good in the story, and then I try and look at that person and really figure out who they are, and try and make them interesting and fun to write and draw. But inevitably, you certainly get quirks and things that will come from people I know into my characters. Certainly, again, going back to book 3, Luna does some things that I can't say anything. So this is a horrible answer, but she's acting in ways that me and my sister are very prone to doing. Like, I'm gonna have to go back in like a year's time and like reveal what this is. But I'm gonna be confused for the next few months. I think the next year. I certainly try and bring things in, or like certain in jokes, or like I guess it's a mixture. I think it's impossible not to bring in aspects of people you know, but I certainly never think my friend Bill, he is now this character. You know what I mean? Like I literally try and put them on the page. I think that's quite a dangerous game as well, because they might read it and think, he doesn't see me that way, does he?
And the villain.
And I very nearly did another spoiler there. Yeah, so basically, like, aspects come in, but generally, I just try and think of the most fun, or at least interesting character that is needed in the story.
Yeah, that's a good show. Yeah, because you don't want them having this, because it would be proof. It's written down. It's like they'd have it right in front of them. You couldn't escape that, really. I've got a kind of a double question from Pris and Nicole. They've asked pretty much the same thing. Any advice for people who are dipping their toes into writing middle grade? And Nicole was pretty much the same advice for aspiring writers.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I can only speak from my own experience. I'm sure there's people way more qualified than me to give you amazing advice, and I know lots of people who join writing groups such as they call it Scooby, you know, the SCWBWI, you know, like a society of writers. And sorry, I've butchered that, but they're like this great group that, you know, you can go and they share experience and advice, and like they share their stories in progress, so they get critiques and stuff. But I have to admit that I've never been a part of that. Like what it was for me, like we were saying kind of at the beginning of the talk, was just trying to learn, like, so reading lots and lots and lots. It sounds so boring and typical, but unfortunately it is, like practicing, just keep on writing, and then being willing to take on critical advice, because and I mean, it can be hard because you put your heart and soul into something, and you really do with writing, I think. And I think a lot of creators, myself included, it can be really terrifying to show someone else. And then when they rip it apart, which mine were done numerous times, it can be quite brutal. But I think you just need to, like, take it. It will hurt, and you do need to step back and be like, oh my God. But then you get over it. And it's never as bad the next day. And then you actually listen to their critiques, and more often than not, they've got really valid things to say. And I know I improved tenfold just by listening to those critiques. But I'd say, in all seriousness, the biggest advice I could give, which is what affected me, was to have fun. Because I said I was butterflying from idea to idea and not finishing anything, and sometimes not even starting anything, because my heart was just not in it. And it wasn't until I just said, enough is enough. Like, what story do I want to tell? What would I have most? If I could write anything in the world, what would it be? And it happened to be Frostheart. And honestly, it was like chalk and cheese, like writing Frostheart compared to some of my earlier stuff, because there was just I think if you are passionate about something, that passion comes through. And I think everyone else will see it. So if you're getting bored writing, your readers are going to get bored as well. So I think you've got to have that love, and I think the rest falls into place. Like, editors work with language and grammar and all that boring stuff. Like, I think as long as you've got your voice and a story to tell, then have fun.
No, that's great advice. So I'll two more questions, then I'll let us go.
Hey,
I think an hour and a half is great. Thank you. So Claire's, I have not paid Claire to ask this whatsoever, but Claire's asked this. Jamie, we all know how you created a character of Gavin. Is there any chance that this character can and will appear in book 3? For anyone and everyone knows, Gav lives and breathes Frostheart. I did not pay Claire to ask this question, and you do not have. That's a Frostheart 3 spoiler, and no, you don't have to do that.
Well, I mean, who knows where he might appear? Like,
the books are stronghold.
Yeah, there are certainly more crowd scenes going on in these later books. But yeah, that was honestly just to say thank you for your honestly amazing support. Like, you've just shouted from the rooftops, and it was just so nice, you know. And so, especially as a debut author coming out, like, terrified, like, to have that kind of support and stuff was just so nice. So I thought, I got to thank you, you know.
It's the best kind of thanks. Like, you don't need to do anything else now. We've had this interview as well, and it's like the best thanks that I could ever have asked for. So thank you. I do still have it framed. So
it's very you know. So
Oh, thank you. And the last, I'll make this the last question of the night. Kelly asked, I'm still interested to know how the typesetting process works for an author illustrator. Do you sometimes not get to illustrate a scene you really wanted to because of where it falls in the layout? That's a good question.
Not so much layout. Sometimes, but you'd have to be quite extreme. Like, no, man, without getting boring, I need to think how this works. So, like, so you usually have a type of you write the manuscript, and they can work out from that how many pages it's going to be in the book, give or take. So you have room to move, and then you tend to make space amid the text, trying to keep to that page limit. But usually there is quite a lot of flexibility. So sometimes I'll be like, I want a much bigger illustration. So we'll either move some text, you move the text around and you make some other illustrations go other places. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, occasionally you might need to sacrifice another illustration because there's just not enough space. So you might be like, okay, which one's more important? In fact, I did it with book 2. I'd noticed that there was a scene we needed because we hadn't actually seen it, and it was quite an important. It's basically a reveal of a Leviathan, and I realized at nowhere in the book do we get this reveal, and they'd been mentioned so many times in the text, and I was like, we need to see this Leviathan, I think. So we got rid of another illustration that was kind of something we'd already seen quite a lot in the book already. So we got rid of that because we were like, we don't need to see that. And then I drew the one that felt better and made it bigger and more impactful and stuff. So generally there is space to move. I think it's only if you end up doing, I want a massive double page illustration. I want a massive double page illustration. You know, it just can't be done. Like you do have to bear things in mind. And there are page limits to these things, and I was pushing mine to the limit, I think. So it's never been a massive problem. I found typesetting. It's usually there's ways around it, and I said I'm backed up by the best designers, so they make it work. I don't know how they do it.
They make it work well, and you've had to kill your darlings sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
It must be painful.
It can be. Sometimes it's hard to explain because often it's done at quite the early stage. So sometimes they're kind of like quite loose sketches. So sometimes I'm like, oh, that would have been cool. But you're like, but other times, and also when you're working to deadline, there's sometimes a little bit of relief where you're like, I'm kind of glad I don't need to draw that because that would have just taken so long to illustrate. But there are times as well where you're like, oh man, that would have been really cool. It would have been really nice to have that, and there was certainly elements that I wanted in Frostheart, like and I'm not complaining at all. I'm so happy with what they've done with Frostheart. Like I think Puffin have just got so behind it, and I said they've been so true to kind of what I pitched the book as. They've pretty much put on paper. But I had these ideas of like when we mentioned items like sunstone or a talisman or a I would like draw it, you know, with like maybe, or like draw like their inventory. So like they would fill their bags and I would show what was going into their inventory, or we would talk about a Leviathan and I would like show the Leviathan and what it was, or like show every time we mentioned a stronghold, I would have an illustration of a strongholder from that stronghold. And that it was just unfeasible. It would have just been so many illustrations. And so, yeah, we had to cut things like that. But I think future me was happy that it didn't have to draw like 1,000 illustrations. So, illustrated books. So, yeah.
Well, I think that's the perfect note to end on. I do want to actually just briefly say, because Frostheart 2 is out on Thursday, October 1st in the UK. I think it was supposed to come out in November in America. Has that been pushed back to February?
Yeah, I feel like it had a delay. I'm not entirely sure why. I might need to come back to you on that, but it is delayed. Which I only heard about recently. I'm really sorry. I've not actually got the date itself. But I always shout about the North American version on all my and all my socials and everything. So
we've got to get in that North American audience. But I think it might be February 9th. I'm not 100% sure. It's somewhere around then. Because I was looking at it because I mean, I'm getting it anyway, but like I wanted to make sure that it was still coming out before I did this. So I saw it was February, and I was like, oh, it's being pushed back.
Yeah. I don't actually know why. In truth, I think it's been a recent development, which is a shame. It's always nice when they can kind of be close together, but
like last year, that's why this was the perfect on group because it was the UK edition and the North American edition came out within a month of each other, really. So it was like perfect.
Yeah, exactly. And I was able to kind of sing and dance about them both. But it is coming, as far as I know.
It's still coming. Yes.
I have heard from a few people on Instagram that it was delayed, and I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, same. But if you do want to import the Waterstones edition, it does have the sprayed edges, so I would recommend.
I was so pleased that they were able to do that again. Like that was because again that's kind of Waterstone's decision, so we can kind of be like, what do you think? And so
they can either say yes or no.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm eternally grateful for them doing that.
Same. Honestly, if they hadn't have done it, I probably would have quit. I'm not gonna lie, I would have quit. It's out in October 20th in Australia, which is awesome.
Shall I do a quick check to make sure?
You could, while I show everybody the Frostheart 1 and 2 with sprayed edges together, this is what you're missing out on if you don't get Frostheart 1 and 2. And then on this side as well, actually, I realized on the spine, it doesn't have Frostheart 2 or Frostheart Escape from Aurora. It just says Frostheart. Yeah, that's
noticed that the other day as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's great actually because it does feel like it's just going to be like one long series, but like together it's like just like a different version kind of thing, like a different color.
It's really satisfying, I think. Having
it is. It's so uniform.
Yeah,
which I love.
Right, I'm on the Viking website.
Excellent.
Kamama says February 9th, 2021.
That's what I thought.
You know you're better than me.
I like literally if I ever went on to the Chase or anything like that, if they had a section for Frostheart or anything like that, I'd be sorted. That would be my specialty subject.
My continuity editor, I think.
Oh yeah. You could literally use me. I could be like, wait, but you said this in book one. You know, I could be that person. I could be that person. So yeah, I will end it here. And thank you so much. Firstly to Jamie for joining me for tonight. Is there anything you want to say to the viewers?
Yeah. No, just thank you all so much. Like honestly, as I said, I suffer severely from imposter syndrome. So the fact that you guys are so supportive, so kind, and even just spending your hard-earned cash on my book is still honestly, I can't actually believe it's happening. It is honestly incredible, and I can't thank everyone enough. Seriously, thank you.
Yay. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We did want you on here for the longest time, so thank you so much.
I
had a blast, so it was great. So everyone as well, I will be doing CCs. That'll probably take a few days, but it will be up. It will be up with subtitles and things, so do check that out. And I will, thanks everyone for tuning in, and we will see you guys later. Remember, buy this on Thursday. Buy it. Bye everyone.
Thanks. See you later.